heard anyone say that they can go from 0 to bonkers in 1 second? It's not true. Nobody can actually go from 0 to bonkers in 1 second. This video I want to talk about mindfulness and mental health because this speaks a lot about that. Why is it some people can go from a place to another place as quick as they do? What this means for society, what this means for our sense of normal in terms of our mental health, and what we can do to actually improve our mental health and gain control and regulation of how our behavioral and mental health swings work. You can understand how certain parts of DNA change, you can learn to understand how different things kind of switch up. Because, you know, one of the things I want to always let people know is you're not a prisoner of your genes. You know, and you're not a prisoner of your environment, the environment that you grew up in. You know, the more you know, the more you learn, the more you train, the more you work, you know what, you actually do literally change into a completely different person, physically, all the way down to the DNA. And that can mean if you grow up in one place, that could have drove you completely nuts, and even, you know, you start working on yourself at 27, 28, you realize all of this, you know what, you're going to wake up 30, 31, and you're going to realize, holy crap, I'm a completely different person. We're just going to put freak out up here at 10. Alright, now when I say freak out, I don't mean to say this in a way that's making fun of, you know, of a breakdown. Alright, I'm not making fun of it, it's just that this is what happens, okay? Well, one of the reasons that we do go into this place is because as a society, in the world we live in now, we think one is our normal. That's not true. The world we live in now, consensus normal, more accurately, is probably at about 5. 1 at 5. And that actually is pretty scary when you think about it, because everything that happens up in here is where we start to see the issues with behavioral and mental health. Okay? If health is 1, if healthy is 1, and societal normal is 5, we really need to pay attention and start taking some responsibility. Or else we are all going to start really feeling the consequences. You know, a lot of people are saying 1 in 4 people have or suffer from mental illness. If we stay at this rate of 5, we keep going up further and further and further, it's not going to be 1 in 4, it's going to be 4 in 4. I would wager to say that nowadays, it's probably more accurately 2 in 4. People who tend to stay in what I consider the, let's just say the red zone, alright, for long periods of time, are training. Their brains are being trained to adapt, to live and behave that way constantly. Not even the fake normal is normal for them. Suddenly fake normal becomes 8, becomes 9. And that is not a good place to be. Luckily we can retrain our normal. I think that most of society tends to hover, you know, in the 4, 5, and 6 range, and then you've got 1, 2, and 3 probably somewhere in Tibet. Why is this a problem? Well, let's talk about where we end up going here, especially this point. I think a lot of people are actually here. The 6 and the 7. Now I'm going to title this the anxious zone, okay? Now this is also the area where you start to see, you know, compulsive behavior, okay? So those of you out there who know a thing or two about OCD, or who are there or have been there, it all starts here at the 6s and the 7s. Anything that kind of takes you out of that objective prefrontal cortex, okay? So this is kind of the area, yeah, where you've got the OCD starting to take its roots in some people. Some people, you know, again, they have the anger management issues, or people who are just, you know, they kind of lose their ability to maintain good behavior, so they kind of become bullies, or you have the other end of the spectrum where, you know, you have the heightened sensitivity, and that kind of happens in that 6 and that 7 area. After that, when you go up here, this is where we kind of have, I'm going to call it the MH area, or the mental health area, because this is where we start to see things come up where again, the brain is kind of trained to be a certain way, and all of a sudden we do have full-blown mental illness taking root, you know, or being turned on if it's in your DNA, you know, so that's depression, that is, you know, clinical OCD, bipolar, BP, borderline personality. And so what happens with this is that with mindfulness is that we talk about brain training, we talk about bringing it down. Why do we want to do that? Well, because we're going to condition our brains to find a new normal. 5 isn't normal. Okay, 5 isn't normal. So maybe after, you know, if you are disciplined enough, if you're not an easily discouraged person, you are definitely going to commit to, you know, okay, I'm going to work on, you know, 20 minutes of mindfulness practice a day, or maybe 5 hours a week, however you want to divide it up, you know, or do meditation. Meditation has the same effect as mindfulness. And what's going to happen is that the brain is going to come down. All right, normal is going to change, and so maybe after, you know, 6 months of consistent training, guess what? Your normal is no longer a 5, you know, it's a 4 or it's a 3, and then after another 6 months to a year, it's probably a 2 or a 1, and that's kind of how you put your brain through rehab. Because all of a sudden, you know, a person who is down here, you know, and they see some distressing news. Somebody tells them something distressing. They may actually kind of go up in their stress a little bit, but they're not going to jump up, you know, all the way up here. They're not going. It's going to take them a while to go there. It's going to have to be a progression. They're going to have to go from here to here to here to here to here, and so on and so forth. Whereas a person who just kind of lives their life up here, you know, unfortunately, this is all they know. This is their normal. And so it would really be helpful for them, you know, to again bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. And of course, you know, in very severe cases, obviously, it's not just about what kind of vitamin supplements you take and whether or not you can do mindfulness. You might need some very good counseling. You know, or a person you know might need some counseling. They might need cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT for short. You know, they might need to actually kind of work through training on that. Phobias. Phobias are very, very big in the 8, 9, 10 area. Okay? And even if this is developed phobias, right? You develop phobias during this point in time. People who end up becoming extremely prejudiced, extremely bigoted, you know, ever have those situations where somebody, you know, gets out of a divorce or loses a parent or something, and then a week later they're suddenly this racist, sexist, homophobe. Like, you know, that kind of thing can actually happen in prolonged stress here too. Because the brain is really kind of, it's trying to build a new brain, and it's not necessarily putting all the pieces back together the right way after it got shuffled up. Alright, so this can kind of help you understand, and also paying attention to things like mass media. You know, when you pay attention to those kinds of things, especially if you are in a job where, you know, perhaps you're doing therapy for other people, or you are working in a job that is full of highly sensitive people, or you're in a job where it's very dangerous, whether it's dangerous because of risk, you know, construction working, or it's dangerous because of violence, such as law enforcement or the military. You know, you've got to be very mindful and making sure that you're mindful, or else, you know, it's much more prone to get a person like that up here than, say, somebody who is working as a librarian who might spend most of their time down here. This is just for occupation. We're just talking about occupation, let alone every other influence a person could have in their life. Okay? So I hope you guys find this helpful, and I hope you understand how mindfulness can be very, very helpful. I hope you can actually go and, you know, take it upon yourselves. Remember, you're never a prisoner to anything.